What if I told you that the most dangerous poison isn't in the water you drink, but in the words you believe? This is the story of a village destroyed, not by poison, but by fear itself. In the heart of a lush valley, surrounded by green fields and flowering trees, there existed a village called Shandampur. It was a place where everyone knew everyone. Neighbors were like family. Doors were never locked. Children played freely in the streets. And at the center of it all stood the village well, the source of life for the entire community. The well was ancient, built generations ago by the village founders. Its water was crystal clear, cool, and pure. Every morning, the villagers would gather there to draw water, exchange greetings, share news, and laugh together. The well wasn't just a source of water. It was the heart of the community, the place where bonds were strengthened and life was celebrated. Among the villagers lived a man named Madhav. He was a respected farmer, known for his honesty and hard work. Madhav had lived in Shandampur his entire life, as had his father and grandfather before him. He loved his village and trusted his neighbors completely. His best friend was Pratap, a potter who made beautiful clay vessels that the entire region admired. The two men had grown up together, played together as children, and remained inseparable into adulthood. There was also Kamala, a wise old woman who ran the village school. She taught the children to read and write, and she was respected by everyone for her knowledge and fairness. And then there was Devraj, a traveling merchant who had settled in Shandampur about 5 years ago. He was clever and charismatic, always knowing the right thing to say. He had quickly become wealthy by trading goods between villages, and he had a way of making people listen to him. Life in Shandampur was simple and good. The harvests were plentiful. There were no serious disputes. People helped each other during difficult times. It was, by all accounts, a small paradise. But paradise, as we all know, can be fragile. One morning in early summer, everything changed. It started with a whisper. Madhav was at the well early that morning, drawing water for his family. As he pulled up his bucket, he noticed Devraj standing nearby, watching him with an odd expression.
"Good morning, Devraj," Madhav said cheerfully. "You're up early today."
Devraj didn't return the smile. Instead, he stepped closer and lowered his voice.
"Madhav, I need to tell you something.
But you must promise not to panic." Madhav felt a chill despite the warm morning.
What is it?
Devraj looked around to make sure no one else was listening, then whispered, "Last night, I saw something strange. A shadowy figure near the well, pouring something into it. I couldn't see who it was, but I'm worried. What if someone has poisoned our water?" Madhav's heart skipped a beat.
Poisoned? Are you certain?
"I'm not certain of anything," Devraj replied carefully. "That's why I'm telling you quietly. We shouldn't cause panic. But we should be careful. Maybe we should test the water somehow, or find out who was at the well last night." Madhav nodded slowly, his mind racing. Yes, you're right. We should investigate this quietly. Thank you for telling me." As Madhav walked home with his water bucket, his hands were shaking slightly. The water that had seemed so pure and refreshing just moments ago now looked suspicious to him. By midday, the whisper had spread. Madhav had told his wife, warning her to be careful. His wife had mentioned it to her sister. The sister told her husband. And so the rumor grew, spreading from house to house like an invisible plague. By evening, the entire village knew about the supposed poisoning. People gathered in small groups, talking in hushed, worried tones. "Did you hear?
Someone poisons the well."
But who would do such a thing? And why? What have we done to deserve this? Fear began to take root in hearts that had known only trust. That night, something happened that turned fear into terror. An old man named Gopal, who lived at the edge of the village, fell violently ill. He had drunk water from the well that afternoon, and by evening he was writhing in pain, vomiting and sweating profusely. His family called for help, and the village healer rushed to his side. But the healer looked grave. "I don't know what's wrong with him," she admitted. "I've never seen symptoms like this before." Word spread like wildfire. Gopal drank from the well, and now he's dying. By morning, Gopal was dead. The village erupted in panic and chaos. "The water is poisoned," people cried. Gopal is dead because someone poisoned our well. Madhav stood in the village square, watching the panic unfold around him. We need to stay calm, he tried to say. We don't know for certain. But his words were drowned out by the fearful voices of the crowd. Kamala, the old teacher, tried to bring reason to the situation. Please, everyone, listen. We shouldn't jump to conclusions. Gopal was very old and had been unwell for some time. His death might have nothing to do with the water. But fear doesn't listen to reason. Devraj stood up on the well's edge, addressing the crowd. We are in danger. Someone among us is a murderer. Someone has poisoned our water source, and we must find out who. But who would do such a thing? Someone shouted. That's what we need to discover, Devraj replied, his voice grave and authoritative. We must investigate everyone. Question everyone. Until we find the culprit, none of us are safe. The crowd murmured in agreement, fear transforming into suspicion. From that moment, Chandampur was no longer a village of friends and neighbors. It became a village of suspects. People stopped greeting each other warmly. Instead, they eyed each other with suspicion. Who could be the poisoner? Who had a motive? Who had been acting strangely? The well, once the heart of community life, now stood abandoned. People were afraid to draw water from it. They began digging small wells in their own yards, or walking long distances to fetch water from a stream outside the village. The very thing that had united them now divided them. With fear established, suspicion grew into accusation. Devraj took it upon himself to lead the investigation. He organized meetings where people could voice their suspicions. And once the door was opened, accusations poured out like a flood. I saw Ram near the well late at night last week, someone said. He was acting suspicious. Ram, a quiet farmer who had lived peacefully in the village for 20 years, suddenly found himself the subject of hostile stares. I was just getting water because I couldn't sleep, he protested. But doubt had been planted. Another person spoke up. What about that newcomer family that moved here last month? We don't really know them. Maybe they have a grudge against us. The newcomer family, who had been welcomed warmly just weeks ago, now found themselves shunned and feared. Even old friends began to doubt each other. Pratap, Madhav's best friend since childhood, came under suspicion when someone remembered that he had been upset about a business deal that went wrong. Pratap was angry last month, someone said. Maybe he wanted revenge on the village. Madhav found himself defending his friend. That's ridiculous. Pratap would never hurt anyone. He's my brother in all but blood. But even as he said it, Madhav noticed a small seed of doubt in his own mind. Could he really be certain? Fear has a way of making us question even our deepest certainties.
The village split into factions.
Some people believed Ram was guilty. Others suspected the newcomers. Still others thought it might be someone else entirely, someone clever enough to hide their guilt.
Argument broke out daily.
Families were divided as members took different sides. Children were kept away from certain houses. The marketplace, once filled with friendly chatter, became a place of tense, minimal transactions. Kamala, the old teacher, watched all of this with growing despair. This is madness, she said to anyone who would listen. We're destroying ourselves with suspicion. Has anyone actually tested the water? Has anyone proven it's actually poisoned? But her voice of reason was drowned out by the louder voices of fear and anger. Then, something even worse happened. On the 7th day after Gopal's death, another person fell ill. A young woman named Priya, who had drunk water from a small well she had dug in her own yard. This threw the village into even greater confusion. She didn't drink from the main well, people said. How is she sick? Maybe the poison has spread to the groundwater, someone suggested. Or maybe the poisoner is striking again, putting poison in individual wells now. We're all going to die. Panic reached fever pitch. People stopped drinking water from any local source, instead walking several miles to fetch water from a distant river. The journey was long and exhausting, but fear drove them. As days passed, Chandampur descended further into chaos. People began hoarding food and water. Neighbors who had shared everything now locked their doors and windows. Children were no longer allowed to play together. The sense of community that had defined the village for generations completely dissolved. Violence erupted. Ram, the farmer who had been most vocally accused, found his fields destroyed one night. Someone had deliberately ruined his crops, his entire livelihood. "You poisoned our well, now suffer," an anonymous note said. Ram was devastated. "I didn't do anything," he cried to anyone who would listen. But few believed him. The newcomer family decided to leave the village, unable to bear the constant suspicion and hostility. As they packed their belongings, they wept. "We came here hoping for a better life," the father said, "but this village has become hell." Even Madhav and Pratap, friends since childhood, had a terrible argument. "Why won't you defend me more strongly?"
Pratap demanded.
"You're supposed to be my best friend." "I am defending you," Madhav replied. "But people are scared, and I can't control what they think." "Or maybe," Pratap said coldly, "you're not entirely sure I'm innocent either." The words hung in the air like poison themselves. Madhav opened his mouth to deny it, but found he couldn't. The seed of doubt had grown, despite his best efforts to suppress it. That night, both men went home with broken hearts, their lifelong friendship fractured by fear and suspicion. Kamala, the old teacher, decided she had to do something. She was tired of watching her beloved village destroy itself. She gathered her courage and made an announcement in the village square. "Tomorrow morning," she declared, "I will drink water from the main well in front of all of you. I will prove that there is no poison." The crowd gasped. "You'll kill yourself," someone shouted. "If I die," Kamala replied calmly, "then you'll know the water is truly poisoned. But if I live, perhaps you'll finally see that we've been destroying ourselves over nothing but fear and rumors." Devraj stepped forward. "That's a brave gesture, Kamala, but foolish. Why risk your life?" Kamala looked at him steadily. "Because this village is dying anyway. Not from poison in the water, but from poison in our hearts. Fear, suspicion, and mistrust are killing us more surely than any toxin ever could. Someone needs to break this cycle, and if it costs me my life to show you the truth, so be it." The next morning, the entire village gathered at the well. People came despite their fear, unable to resist witnessing what might be either a brave act or a suicide. Kamala stood by the well, calm and dignified. She lowered the bucket, pulled up fresh water, and poured it into a cup. The crowd watched in tense silence. "Before I drink," Kamala said, "I want to say something. 4 generations, this well has served our village faithfully. It has never harmed us. It has given us life. But in just a few days, we have allowed fear to turn it into a symbol of death. We have allowed suspicion to destroy friendships that took lifetimes to build. We have become our own worst enemies." She raised the cup to her lips. Several people gasped. Some looked away, unable to watch. Kamala drank the entire cup of water. Then she stood there, waiting. Minutes passed. 5 minutes. 10 minutes. 15 minutes. Nothing happened. Kamala remained perfectly healthy. A confused murmur ran through the crowd. "She's fine," someone said in disbelief. But what about Gopal? What about Priya?" Madhav stepped forward, and in that moment, he felt something shift in his mind. "What if," he said slowly, "we've been wrong about everything?" Just then, the village healer pushed through the crowd. She looked shaken. "I need to tell you all something," she said, her voice trembling. "I've been examining Gopal's symptoms and Priya's symptoms more carefully. And I've realized something. Gopal died of a heart condition he'd had for years. The symptoms looked unusual because he had eaten some bad food that afternoon, unrelated to the water. And Priya is suffering from a sickness she caught from her brother's family in the next village. It has nothing to do with water at all." The crowd erupted in shocked exclamations. "You mean, there was never any poison?" But Devraj said he saw someone at the well. All eyes turned to Devraj. The merchant's face had gone pale. For the first time since this nightmare began, he looked uncomfortable. I saw something suspicious," he said defensively. "I was trying to protect the village." But Kamala wasn't finished. She had spent the last few days doing something no one else had thought to do: actual investigation. I spoke to everyone who lives near the well, she said, addressing the crowd. No one saw anything suspicious that night. In fact, Devraj, on the night you claimed to have seen this shadowy figure, you weren't even in the village. 3 people confirmed you had traveled to the next town for business. The crowd's attention fixed on Devraj like a spotlight. What are you saying? Someone asked. Madhav felt ice in his veins as understanding dawned. You lied, he said to Devraj. You made up the story about the poisoning. But why? Why would you do such a thing? Devraj's mask finally cracked. His charming smile faded, replaced by something cold and calculating. You want to know why? He said bitterly. Because I tried to buy land here to expand my business, and the village council rejected my proposal. They said it would harm the community character. I offered them wealth, progress, opportunity, and they chose to stay small and insignificant. So you decided to destroy us? Pratap said in horror. I decided to teach you a lesson, Devraj corrected. I wanted to show you how fragile your precious community really was. One little whisper, one small seed of fear, and look what happened. You turned on each other like animals. Your trust, your friendship, your unity, all of it was so weak that it shattered from a simple rumor. The crowd was stunned into silence by the admission. You destroyed our village over a rejected business deal? Kamala said, her voice filled with disgust and sadness. I merely revealed what was already there, Devraj replied coldly. The potential for fear, for suspicion, for betrayal. I didn't poison your well. Devraj was expelled from the village that very day. Some wanted to punish him more severely, but Kamala urged restraint. He has already succeeded in poisoning us with hatred, she said. Let's not prove him right by becoming violent. But even with Devraj gone, the damage was done. The village that had been so peaceful and unified was now fractured and wounded. People felt ashamed of how quickly they had turned on each other. Ram's crops were gone. The newcomer family had already left. Friendships had been broken. Trust had been shattered. Madhav approached Pratap with tears in his eyes. I'm sorry, he said. I should have trusted you completely.
You're my brother, and il est firmek me do you.
Pratap embraced him. I'm sorry too. I should have understood how scared everyone was. We both let fear control us. Across the village, similar scenes played out. People apologized to each other, tried to rebuild what had been broken. But some wounds were too deep. Ram stood in his destroyed field, looking at the ruined crops that represented months of work. Apologies don't bring back my harvest, he said quietly.
Apologie don't feed my family this winter.
The newcomer family was gone and would never return. Their trust in communities had been permanently damaged.
Kamala gathered the village together one final time.
We have learned something terrible, she said.
We've learned how fragile civilization is.
How quickly trust can turn to suspicion. How easily fear can become more contagious than any disease. Devraj didn't poison our well, but he showed us that our minds and hearts could be poisoned by something even more dangerous, the willingness to believe the worst about each other. What do we do now? Someone asked. We rebuild, Kamala replied. But we rebuild with wisdom. We remember this lesson. We remember that the next time fear whispers in our ear, we must pause and question. We must verify before we accuse. We must protect our bonds of trust as carefully as we would protect our most precious possession, because trust is our most precious possession. The village did rebuild, slowly and painfully. But it was never quite the same. Some scars remained. Some trust, once broken, could never be fully restored. The well stood in the center of the village once again, its water pure and clean as it had always been. But now, every time someone drew water from it, they remembered. They remembered how close they had come to destroying themselves over nothing but a lie. Years passed. Shandampur survived, though it bore the scars of that terrible time. Children grew up hearing the story of the poisoned well as a cautionary tale. They learned about how their grandparents had nearly destroyed their own village through fear and suspicion, believing a lie because they were too afraid to question it. Kamala, now very old, continued teaching. But she added a new lesson to her curriculum. She taught children about critical thinking, about questioning rumors, about the danger of mass panic, and about the importance of protecting trust within a community. The well was never poisoned, she would tell her students. But we poisoned ourselves with fear. And that's a lesson you must never forget. Madhav and Pratap remained friends until the end of their days, but their friendship carried a small shadow that hadn't been there before. They had learned that even the strongest bonds could be tested by fear, and that knowledge changed them. Ram eventually recovered, though it took years. He never quite forgave the village for destroying his livelihood over a rumor. His trust in community had been permanently damaged. The newcomer family never returned, and the village never forgot the shame of how they had treated innocent people. As for Devraj, he was last seen in a distant city, still charming and manipulative, probably spreading his poison elsewhere. But Shandampur had become immune to his particular venom. They had learned their lesson the hard way. The well still stands today, offering its clean, pure water to anyone who needs it. But now it serves a dual purpose. It provides life-giving water, yes. But it also stands as a monument to a painful truth. The most dangerous poison is not the kind that enters your body. It's the kind that enters your mind. Remember, dear viewer, that in our modern world, we face our own versions of poison wells every single day. Social media rumors that spread like wildfire. News stories designed to create fear and division. Whispers and gossip that destroy reputations without evidence. The poison isn't in the water. It's in the unchecked fear, the unverified accusation, the willingness to believe the worst without seeking the truth. Before you share that alarming post, before you judge your neighbor based on a rumor, before you let fear drive you to suspicion, remember Shandampur. Ask yourself, am I drinking from a poisoned well of lies and fear? Or am I seeking the truth? The choice, as always, is yours. Thank you for watching. If this story made you think twice about the information you consume and share, please pass this wisdom on to others.